Good morning, Ferrum. It's Tuesday, April 21st. We will continue our reading of the parables today. Today we will be in Luke chapter 10. I will begin reading at verse 25. The parable actually begins in verse 35. This is the parable of the Good Samaritan. We'll read the parable together, and then I will follow that up with a few questions for us to ponder. Beginning with verse 25. A legal expert stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to gain eternal life?" And Jesus replied, "What is written in the law? How do you interpret it?" He responded, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." Jesus said to him, "You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live." But the legal expert wanted to prove that he was right, so he said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho. He encountered thieves who stripped him naked, beat him up, and left him near death. Now it just so happened that a priest was also going down the same road. When he saw the injured man, he crossed over to the other side of the road and went on to his way. Likewise, a Levite came by the spot, saw the injured man, and crossed over to the other side of the road and went on his way. A Samaritan who was on a journey came to where the man was, but when he saw him, he was moved with compassion. The Samaritan went to him and bandaged his wounds, tending them with oil and wine. Then he placed the wounded man on his donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took 2 full days' worth of wages and gave them to the innkeeper. And he said, "Take care of him, and when I return, I will pay you back for any additional costs." What do you think? Which of these 3 was a neighbor to the man who encountered thieves? Then the legal expert said, "To the one who demonstrated mercy toward him." And Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." This is an interesting story about a man who is a lawyer, a person who studies the Torah, God's law, who comes to test Jesus. There's a wonderful book by Allison McKenzie called The Parables for Today. Alice McKenzie is actually Associate Professor of Homiletics at Perkins Theological. In this book, she has an entire chapter called "The Reign of God Shows Up Where You Least Expect It." And in that chapter, she includes this parable from Luke. In the chapter, McKenzie points out the fact that not only is this person who is questioning Jesus a lawyer, she also questions the way that the lawyer approaches Jesus and asks him a question, wanting him to test him. The way that McKenzie unpacks this is that perhaps this isn't a way of tricking Jesus, as so many commentators want to say, but she wonders, is this lawyer really asking from his heart a way to figure out what this means and who this rabbi that other people are following really is? "I wonder," she said, "how he was hoping Jesus would answer this question. Who is my neighbor?" There is a Jewish tradition of compassion as an expression of our love for God. In the end, McKenzie wraps this parable back around, wondering if that's not the same question that is asked of us today. Do we simply follow the law and try to tick off everything that God expects us to do? Or are we living in such a way that the way we act, the way that we conduct ourselves, is really a way of not only loving our neighbor, but also expressing our love back to God? Go take care of yourself today, Ferrum, and in doing so, take care of others. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.